and you can always guarantee that when you press the live button, a dog starts barking in the far distance. Yeah, it's just it's going to happen. Hello, everybody. It's Graham Cove with another edition of My Music. Today, I'm going to be speaking to Marla here, all the way from where are you coming from?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn
So that's how you know Ali as well. She was just mentioning the fact that she knows Ali G, who's been on here recently. We're going to be speaking to Marla about her and her music just after this. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me this afternoon. Is Brooklyn that kind of scene where, you know, it's big enough for, you know, for you all to survive, but small enough that you can all get to know each other if you want to?
Well, Brooklyn is Brooklyn's pretty big, but yeah, there is like a scene, but Brooklyn's pretty big. It's actually, when you arrive in Brooklyn, it'll say like on the bridge, even though it's like the 4th largest city in the United States, even though it's not a city, it's part of New York City. So it's definitely, and I grew up in Brooklyn, in the part of Brooklyn that was like called Canarsie, which is old school Brooklyn, where like when you grew up in Brooklyn, then you're like, I just want to get out, get across that bridge to Manhattan, kind of like the Saturday Night Fever, if anyone has seen that film. You know, it's really true. And so then I got out, but now came back in 2015, and it's amazing. Like Brooklyn is definitely a scene, and I love it. And the trees, and yeah, I know a lot of people. Although you can also not know a lot of people. Yeah. But like any world, if you're in a certain like scene or culture or something, you know, suddenly it becomes so small, and you know, the whole 6 degrees or 2 degrees, it just seems like a separation kind of thing.
When I had Ali in, we talked a fair bit about just how much of Brooklyn is in her music. How much of Brooklyn is in your art? Because of course you're you know, you're not just making music, you're acting, and you're doing other things as well. You're an artist across the different mediums, as it were. So how much of Brooklyn is in what you do?
I think it's all Brooklyn, even if I don't mean it to be, because I am, like I said, I'm native, and as much as I would like to think, like I always joke when I travel, you know, with the band and stuff, because some of them, like my partner in the record label and stuff, Tomás, he grew up in Brooklyn, but I always joke like, but I'm the one who has the Brooklyn accent. Like I'm the one who really sounds like I'm from Brooklyn. And so
you're the authentic deal.
Yeah. And not that I'm so like proud. I'm like, for years I'd be like, oh shit, I really have this. But I mean, so yeah, I think it informs a lot. I remember like when I used to write, I mean, I still write like monologues and stuff. And to me, like, I remember writing this monologue a long time ago, which was in my play, The Canarsie Line. But when I first wrote it, it was just like this monologue about this character, Loretta. And I read it, in my mind, it was like a Southern William Faulkner kind of like poem about like, you know, yeah, watch her ponytail swinging. And then when I went to this original like class, this is like when I really started they were right away like, oh my God, you know, this is so New York, you're so downtown New York, you're so Brooklyn. And I'm like, wait, this is William Faulkner. You know, I'm Southern. What are you talking about?
That's not the voice I was going for.
Exactly. But then I was like, okay. And then it was like, actually the person who I was working with and became my director for that particular first play I did, she's like, this is like all Canarsie, like, which is where I'm from. So there you have it, you know? So yeah, I think Brooklyn does inform without even meaning to, pretty much, or New York, a lot of.
What's Canarsie like?
Canarsie growing up.
I love the way you stopped and laughed slightly.
Well, because I mean, people who grew up in Canarsie, not necessarily me, like love it, like.
And then they leave.
Yeah, but they're like I'm not gonna sit here and make judgments on any people. It's kind of like, it was. I grew up in when I grew up, it was all Jewish people. I'm Jewish and Italian, so it was like that, and a lot of like, open, safe, like. But it was like out in the, meaning it was very parochial or provincial, I would say, at that time, because that was before, once like we started, the world got smaller with internet and, all that stuff, then it was different. But then it was like I said, to get to Manhattan was like, oh my God, like making, getting out. Although I liked it, and it was, it was tough. It had tough things and good, it was, a lot of people I grew up with, I was reading an article lately, and a lot of people I grew up with are like in jail for like, not my friends, but like for working with the mob or trying to kill people or and like working with, John Gotti. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Was it hard to find good art from that area, or did
I didn't even think about art then? No, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't. The art it definitely can be a muse for art. And but I didn't feel like, oh, like I wasn't in an art scene. I was just kind of like, wanting to be cool or, whatever, like young person, and like not fit in, or like, yeah, be cool and tough and be accepted.
Do you think sometimes though, when you come from a more parochial place, that actually it does inform in a way everything else you do later on, because in a way you were always looking to find something bigger, and therefore you were on that search right from the word go.
Totally. So there was that search, and also like, because then it becomes like there's interesting stories. A lot of this stuff, like I said, that first play, or even now I'm doing a show with my dad, which is incredible. Like that, my dad is 87. He's 88 now, but when he started, 87, did his New York City stage debut at 87. He's still working. He's very healthy. And it was right after my mom died, which it is actually a year tomorrow that my mom passed. And he had written all these stories about growing up in Brooklyn in the 40s and 50s. And he always liked, and he wrote these stories when he was like 50 something. And then like I had my acting coach, director, another person I worked with for a long time was here. We were sitting Shiva for my mother. If you don't know what that is, it's just when someone dies, Jewish people, you just meet for a week. And I was like, Dad, read her your stories, because no one else was here. And then he did. And she's like, Howard, this should be a show. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, let's do it. Like, yeah. And I'm not even let's. And she was like, she's like, and Marla should be in it too. And he was like, yeah. And then we did it, and we put it up like 3 times this year in off-Broadway theaters, and he's killing it. But it's all about Brooklyn, because it's him telling his stories, and then my parts are kind of like, it's more fun for me, because I just kind of I feel like I'm the palate cleanser. Like I just come in and change the energy, because I'm very like, bleh. And it was, so I mirrored his themes with like growing up in Brooklyn in like the 70s, 80s. And so I have all that stuff like Jimmy the Perv, and, like going out to the disco. I was a total disco girl as a teenager, which is funny that I do like more rock and roll and all that. But actually I was, I was a total, because I was going out to clubs at 15, and like hanging out.
When you say disco, what were you calling disco?
Like I just loved all disco music. There was a station, WKTU. I went to all the clubs in Brooklyn, and at 15 then, the age was 18 to be going out. So, we got in, we had fake IDs, and we would just go into all these clubs in Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge, which are all these like, and, and everyone has like, I just like joke, because like in Brooklyn, like everyone, like the nicknames, it's like, Dave Scarface, Bobby Romeo, Michael Robot, Jimmy the Perv, which I have a whole thing about Jimmy the Perv because I had a crush on him. Like it's just that what you see in the movies, it's really true.
Yeah. I mean, you say rock and roll, and we're coming to some of the detail of your music in a minute, but
oh, sorry.
That's universal. That's universal.
It's my phone connected to my computer.
But if you listen to a song of yours like Dance Together, there's a big beat in there,
right? And that is because I have an incredible I have an incredible co-writer, Tomás, that was who was just calling me, Tomás Doncker, who's incredible, songwriter, producer, guitarist, doing music forever, and also the band. So it's always about that. The label is called True Groove, there's always a funk. There's always, some soulful thing, because that's just like it has to be. So yeah, and so that's it.
So there's still a bit of disco in there, really.
I want to do some covers. I wanted to cover. I don't know if you know. This is so silly. There's this song that was so big when I went. It was in high school. It's called "In the Bush." It's crazy. Do you know that song?
I don't.
No, I
But
mean,
I'm nodding because it's a great title.
It was a band called Magique, and it was the song. Like I remember when I first started high school, and everyone like down the halls would be screaming like "Push, push in the bush." I mean, it's really like push, in the bush. And I was like, I want to do a cover of that one day because it's so ridiculous. We even saw them live when I was a kid, but it was like a huge hit. Like everyone was like screaming it in the hallways and saying it, and all over the place. It's it's pretty.
Well, that's one of the great things about some of those disco songs is that I mean, it's like "Oops Upside Your Head," isn't it? Whatever that means.
Right.
Yeah, but it's just a groove and it's a hook.
Totally.
And it just gets you.
Yeah, and actually now looking back, like at the time, I just loved it, and I wasn't in music at that point. I just thought like, but now looking back, like it is great music because it's live. I mean, it's real bands, it's real instruments. I mean, not that there's anything. There's obviously we work with loops now too, and all of that. But there's there's people really playing. And there's some really great songs.
Hey, listen, some of the bass lines in those songs,
incredible.
Some of the best bass lines ever. Because they're carrying the whole song and they're pulling you along with it all the way.
I always love Boogie Oogie Oogie.
Yeah.
Great song. Yeah, it's just one obvious one.
But you've obviously got quite diverse influences in terms of music, or as a listener, you've listened to different things. I mean, you did a cover of "Satellite of Love."
Yeah.
What was it about Lou Reed?
Yeah, Lou Reed. What is the song about to me?
No, what was it about him as an artist that drew you to cover that?
We were thinking about doing another covers album and the label, and then I was, we thought Lou Reed. I do like Lou. People I'm not even like I love. I mean, listen, Lou Reed's an iconic, amazing, artist, but I'm not like a Lou Reed. But people always. From the beginning, when I started doing my writing as well, not just music, they were like, "Oh, you're like Lou Reed," like comparing me to all these like downtown New York people, like Lou Reed and Patty, and I'm really not. But like, so I said, okay, let's do a cover, and "Satellite" is just such a great song, and I don't even know. I mean, it's the way he obviously, and he sings kind of like, and so I do as well, and. That song is just so great. And when you listen to it, you kind of like, what the hell is this thing about actually? In a way, that song. And yet I know what he, what he maybe was saying, but I know what I think it's about for me. And I just really like this. It's so hooky and catchy and moving without even going like, what the hell is this thing? Like, what's that middle part? Like, I've been told you've been bold with Harry, Mark, and John. Like, what?
Yeah.
And yet, I was able to, find stuff in it, and it's a great song. And so it's like I feel like it's a big responsibility to do a cover of songs like that.
It's very interesting because in a way it's almost the antithesis of disco. In that it's a great song, and as you say, someone like Lou Reed wrote some very catchy songs, but actually they were quite understated, whereas disco's quite almost in your face in a way, which is the great thing about it.
Maybe that's where I got my in your face thing. I mean, I'm not. My performance style is kind of in your face, but yeah, that's actually true. That's why it's funny that I said that I ended up doing music, which I entered into it pretty late. I mean, I did writing and stuff, and so the funny thing is that people that it seemed more, like that although I did love The Who, like when I was a kid, like I loved The Who and I loved Pete Townsend. Like I was just like, oh, I wanted to meet him. I just thought, I loved his writing. I loved The Clash a lot.
Well, now look, there's someone that, effectively wrote for the bigger picture, isn't it? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Tommy,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Quadrophenia. I mean, those are operas, if you like. You know, they're certainly bigger pieces than the sort of classic rock confine it over here thing. So was that always sort of there for you? Sort of like I don't actually really know what I want to do here. I want to sing. I want to write. I want to act. I want to, you know, maybe I'll just make my own art and see where I fit into it.
That's totally it. Like, because I am very yes, because I never even thought of it till this second in a way. Like, you know, yes, because when I was young, I was, you know, I was a disco girl. I really, like I said, I loved Pete Townsend and I loved, you know, all the Who stuff. But it was Pete, you know, because he's the writer and I loved him and I like when he sang the songs. And but now I'm thinking about it that like I made a lot of my albums into kind of rock operas. My first album was Brief Night Out, and I never really, for some reason, connected it with my, you know, love of Pete Townsend. I mean, until right now that, yes, because I have, my mind is, you know, I think I have a lot of things going on at the same time. And so sometimes, so I have a lot of ideas. And when I do my work, sometimes I don't know when I start out what it's going to be. It's kind of like, it's just like all these pieces and then I got to put it together. And I need help putting it together with a director or someone else because but somehow all my albums seem to become about something more than when I was writing it. Like I remember when I did Miracles Lost and Found, which is one of my albums, you know, and it's a lot of like, I guess, statements about America now and stuff, but I wasn't trying. I don't try to write about that. Like I just, whatever comes to me, it's not like I'm going to write something about that's just not my process. It doesn't mean someone else is different. And when it was done, I started thinking, God, I was thinking, man, a friend of mine was like, Marla, you know, this entire album is about death. And I was like, oh shit, you know, it is. But like, I wasn't at all thinking about dying. You wouldn't like listen to it and be like, oh, this is, and I have a song on it called Everyone Dies, which was a funny song, you know, kind of like B-52s ish in terms of like, and it was kind of like, it was a joke because I said, yeah, everyone dies on Facebook. I never heard about so much death before until Facebook existed. But after that album, like a lot of people did die in my life, which is not to make everything sad, but like, you know, I lost my daughter to suicide in 2017.
Sorry.
And she had been struggling for years. So that's huge. That definitely has, you know, that's a huge explosion of life and changes, you know, just the foundation is kind of exploded. But I just think it's interesting that beforehand, I'm not going to say like, oh my God, and that's why that all happened, because it wasn't about her. Although there was one song about her on that album. I tend to find that a lot of the stuff, and this sounds like maybe, I hope this doesn't sound like obnoxious or anything, but like a lot of things I either write about in my plays or the music like 20 years ago, all of a sudden seems like it happens. And I wasn't thinking at the time, like I'm predicting, like I said, it's just whatever. And then like recently people would call me like, oh my God, Marla, like you wrote about this in Brief Night Out, like kind of like the rise of fascism and, you know, but it was all like jokey. It was like funny. Like when I did it in the show, it was kind of like this neurotic person. I wonder who that could be. You know, fearful.
But it sounds like your music starts from quite a spontaneous place.
It does. Most of it does. I mean, yes, a lot of it does. I've written things when I first started writing music. You know, I didn't work with a musician. It was just all of a sudden songs were coming to me, and it was just because singing I was having a really hard time because my daughter had been sick for a while, and I just, you know, kind of like fell apart and breakthrough kind of thing. And I just started singing because it made me feel better. And I never sang. I'm not really like my daughter was an incredible singer. Like, wow, you know, from the time she was born, but like me, like, you know, I was just like more like anyway. So I started singing because it made me feel better. And then I just started bringing songs into like pieces I wrote. And then I just started writing all these songs, a lot of them. And then I'm like, holy shit, I need to find a musician. That's when I met Tomás, which was, thank God, someone who's like, you know, really like world class, like him in the band. And yeah, but so in the beginning it was just all me. Then over the years, sometimes it's different. Like for example, I just wrote a new song for my new "We Sing in the Bushes" Volume 2, and I, you know, came to him with like lyric and some kind of tune stuff and melody. And I said, but I kind of want it like more like a punk clashy vibe. Didn't end up being that, but he just, well, it's kind of punk, but it wasn't. It's completely clashy. Anyway, so he, he listened to what I did, and then he just kind of played out something for 2 minutes and 6 seconds, which usually I like to have longer songs. But it was based on what I brought. It was based on like tune and the concept. And then I went home and I just finished up the lyrics with what he, and then it's so good. And it really is like, probably, it really is like the most punk rock song I've ever done. And it's 2 minutes and 6, and I love it. So like, that was that process, and I came back and it was like, wow, it's done. Other times, I come with a melody and a thing, and then, always find systems. Sometimes, I just get like, sometimes they've given me like a beat and thing and just write some lyrics. So it just depends. But I always, who doesn't? What artist doesn't like to be inspired? It's much harder when you're not, but it is a lot, as they say, right? 90% perspiration, which I hate.
Yeah, I guess what I meant by the fact that it sounds like you come from the spontaneous places is that the initial spark idea seems quite, oh, let's do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like dance.
And then whatever developmental process needs to happens.
That is very true, actually.
And it's quite interesting because you said something in there, and I believe I picked it up right, that you said that your mum said that your dad should do this thing.
Wasn't my mom? It was my friend, and she was my acting coach for years, and she's
right.
from lots of Elizabeth Browning, and she came here during the Shiva from my mom.
Right.
But my mom was my muse. My mom and my daughter are my muse, and so everything I write is always somehow they are, yeah. But
do you get this spontaneous? Who do you get this spontaneous idea nature from? Is that from your mum, your dad, or?
Interesting question. I don't know. My mom was definitely very, like I always say, the person in the family who never left the couch was by far the most interesting person, which is my mom. Very quirky. She did write too. We have a lot of writers, songwriters in the family. I mean, that was why I never did that. She was very secretive. If she was spontaneous, we wouldn't know, but because everything was kind of like her little secret world. My dad is extremely friendly. I don't know. Interesting. It might not be from either of them in terms of like, we're all kind of quick minds. Like my father's like fast mind and stuff. Yeah. My son, it might be the most that way as well. I'm not so sure.
You need to look back through your family tree and see where it comes from.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're all, like I said, we're all good writers. And my brother's a good writer, like songwriter. Like there's a lot of writers in the family. In fact, I did a play called The Pill, which I conceived of, but it was like written by the family. It was like one of those Rashomon. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Rashomon, but like, here's a story that happened to family. Let's hear everyone's point of view, a version of it. And it was something that happened. It was like a funny situation that happened years ago. And then my son was initially like, and when it happened, it was actually something that caused me to like, it was the beginning of my breakdown, but I knew it was funny in the moment. It felt like my little Miss Sunshine moment in terms of basically I accidentally took my daughter's antidepressant and I was like terrified of meds, and it was a mistake. I was giving it to her and I wanted to sip of the water, and I took the water and popped the pill in my mouth, and then I like completely freaked out, like completely.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, how do I throw this off? Like, what do I do? And she's like, Mom, nothing's going to happen. Like, this is making me real. I'm like, I don't care. Show me how to throw it up. I'm asking like my anorexic bulimic daughter how to throw up this pill. And it's funny. I mean, it's dark humor, which I have. And I was thinking, but I really was freaking out. And she's like, Mom, nothing's going to happen. I've taken handfuls, And even though I really did like have a little bit of a break, I always said, that's going to go in a play because this is ridiculous. And then like years later, my son wrote this like pilot for a comedy, opening pilot for a show. And it was that scene of the pill. And then I was like, wait, I'm going to write my version. So then I wrote like a version. And then I was like, you know what? Elle, my daughter was alive. And I was like, can you write what you thought? And so she wrote like an essay kind of about when Mom took my crazy pills. And then I asked my dad, and he was like, sure. And he didn't even remember he was like, had no clue what was going on. Then my mother, I interviewed her. And then we put it all together, and it became this great play called The Pill, which was put up at La Mama, which is a great theater. But so what
That's fascinating.
is, and there's crazy
Yeah.
is that it was a very dark humor, you know, it's definitely black humor play. And you know, and it was a lot of people like, you know, in the play be like, wait, he wasn't there, because like my son's version, he brought like his dad in, and you know, it was funny and also very, you know, moving, because it was about the struggles with a daughter or with an eating disorder or a sister, and suicide ideation. But when we first did it, you know, she was alive when we first did the first reading. So one person said, so it was like a black comedy because she was sitting 6 feet behind me. The day that La Mama said, yeah, we're going to produce this, she killed herself. Nothing to do with that. So it was just like, what? And then I was like, well, I'm keeping it the same. I'm not changing the ending. And it kind of gave me this thing. And then when we put it up, it was still black humor, but it took a few days because a lot of people coming know the family. And like as someone said, when I first started, it was a black comedy, and now it's a tragedy. We don't say in the end that she died, but if you know, but it's still funny. Like it really has a lot of legs, and it's very, and just the fascinating thing that everyone contributed, from my family.
I just love that whole piece because, well, I'm fascinated by communication, which is kind of why I do this.
Yeah.
I actually did a degree in communication. That was my thing. But I'm fascinated by the way that you try to look at it or get the different perspectives in there, because I think that's where we go wrong so often in society, which is that we assume other people's viewpoint, or we assume a narrative or a perspective on something which is all based on our experience but not on other people's. And it's so valuable to have other people's viewpoint on anything, really.
It's so true. I mean, and I think that's something that as we mature in life, there's those moments where like, oh, everyone doesn't see everything the way I do.
Wow.
Right. And it's like, wow. And to really understand that, it's hard, it takes a while. And then of course, it gets easy. Well, not easier, unfortunately, like what's going on with politics these days, whatever side, whatever, like in America, it's just like, I can't believe that like half the country thinks completely differently, like completely, like I don't even see, like, it's like, wow, like how does this, we're so not seeing things on the same, like the opposite, but it's important to know that and to try to have, I mean, I could be like, you can not have respect sometimes, but it's like, it's important, how do you bring people together? And sometimes it feels impossible. Like, right now it's a tough time, as we all know.
But it is how you navigate that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it starts with, however difficult it is, it starts with hearing that alternative perspective.
Right. And I know.
And just giving a bit of time to actually think about it, as opposed to shout back, well, that's your perspective, mine's this. And just trying to find, I guess for me, it's just about trying to find elements of truth that are shared. And it might be that you just take very, very small steps, because there aren't large steps to be taken. But and if you look at anything that's ever achieved anything over the years, I mean, if you look at things like the Irish peace process, for example, which took years and years and years of dialogue, it was, what changed anything in the end was very, very small steps of, okay, we can agree on that.
You're right.
You don't start to come together at all until you move 1 inch.
You're right. And it's very wise of you, because that is, I think, and I also learning that is the only way, like the things that have progressed in America, and I can have friends who are like, yeah, it's the same. And I'm like, no, because every small thing. So maybe it is 1 step forward, 2 step, or like, they always say like any great changes are really like started the community, started like the tiny, like the 10 people, because if you start going and it does happen, but to have the patience, right, to be like, this can change, even though it just feels like it never will, and it might not be in my time, it might be in 2 generations or another, but it does, and it's such a wise, it's just wise, and it can be frustrating because people like want all this, but that really is, I feel the same way, like that's the only way that it actually happens. And
I think that's what happens when we grow, as we grow older, is the want to see change happen. Our understanding of the timeline of that. It's weird, isn't it? Because we're running out of time as you get older. You're running out of time, but actually you understand that you need more time.
Exactly.
For it to happen. It's like what all of us, when we're like hit our teenage years and whatever, and we're 18, 19, we're like, I want to change the world, and I want to change it now.
Right. And that's why revolutions are usually started like, are.
And it's great that
the youth,
it's great that the youth have that,
because
we need that. We all need that. We all need young people to have that in them, that fire in them, because sometimes actually that one of them stands up, like when Greta stood up and went, it made all of us go, holy.
Exactly.
Right. And that's good, but it, as you get older, I think you kind of learn that it's like the thing of learn to pick your battles, isn't it? I mean, it's
exactly,
how far can I actually win this?
Right.
By
and learning to compromise too. Which is hard, and I remember that, I mean, it was just the film, I don't know how accurate it was, but that Lincoln film, remember Lincoln? And because what I so took away from that, and it's exactly what we're saying, like, how like Lincoln managed to get the Emancipation Proclamation signed, even though he didn't get everything. He didn't get them to say, yes, everyone's created equal. That was like not going to happen. I hope I'm getting this right. I think so. And but it was brilliant because he knew, like, at least I can get this. Like, let me, instead of people like, no, it's like not ideal. It's like you can't, but if sometimes you have to compromise.
We watched the film Living, which is an Amazon exclusive. I don't know whether you've seen it, with Bill Knightley.
I did see it. It's like when he's like that guy and he's going and he meets the young girl.
Yeah, well, he's an older guy. He works in the city. He's a civil servant. And then he discovers that, and his life is ended up being the same every day. But that's what, when he was younger, that's what he wanted. He just wanted to be one of the suits, one of the people that, a man of position. That's what he wanted to be, and he just, sort of admired the guys waiting in their bowler hats and whatever on the train station every day to go into London. And so he achieved it, and then he gets a diagnosis of terminal cancer, and that obviously turns his world. And then he realizes that, and the beautiful thing, without spoiling it for anyone that hasn't seen it, the beautiful thing is that he realizes he can do one little thing, which in some ways is a much bigger thing.
Right.
But he can do one little thing. But it's and the beautiful thing in the film is, from the narrative, is that it's what everybody else learns from that thing that becomes the bigger thing. Right.
Yeah, I did see it actually. It was like maybe a year ago. So I don't know why, but I do remember him, and I remember, yeah, exactly. The girl.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think we love. I think we need stories like that, just to kind of remind us that,
exactly.
Okay, does it really? Yeah. We can all aim at the big thing, big picture, but sometimes if we can just do that one little thing.
That is exactly, that seems to be coming up a lot in my conversations with people, like this thing about, like I said, like I was listening to a podcast by an interview, I think on Mark Maron, with the guy who wrote the original book, which was like the opiate epidemic book, and then he wrote a second one about fentanyl. And he said that his biggest takeaway was that, the people, forget about changing the world. Like, it's the 12, like I was saying, the 12 people in the community that are setting up some help for people who are addicts and changing it. One person, those are the people making the biggest difference. Just like, small little groups, not like this, because then you just can be, stopped and daunted. But if you can do one little thing.
Well, it's a bit like me doing this, and when I started this, you then realize there's a community of people out there that are doing something similar, and and ultimately there's a reason why we've all done this, and partly it's because there's a commercial arm out there in terms of how music is bought and disseminated and everything else, which isn't actually doing anything for artists. And one of us on our own doesn't really do much at all, you could argue. But actually, if you think about all of the people that are doing this and helping artists to get their voice out there, etc., it makes a big difference.
Yes, and thank you. I mean, it is beautiful what you're doing, and I like your handle a better way of life. It's love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's finish by talking about 2024. We're nearly at the end of the year. We've got next year coming around the corner. What's 2024 hold for you?
There's a lot coming up suddenly. Like yesterday, I realized I'm like, oh wow. Well, I am. I am going on. I'm going to be on tour in England again. In March, first week of March, I'll be getting all the dates like in the next few days, probably in that same area. But I'm not sure. But I'll be doing a bunch of gigs there in support of the Volume 2, The Fine Art of Pissing in the Bushes, Volume 2. And it'll be more like stripped down acoustic part of it. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited about that. So I'm going to try to create some kind of show. So that's exciting. And then the show with my dad just got booked in a few places. This show with my dad, just like, I can't even believe that this is even happening. And he's like got bit by the bug. Like, he just loves performing. And so we're doing a couple of shows, one like in Florida and then something. And so that's happening. And I just today have this, I don't know what yet. So I have this movement piece that I want to do. Like I was doing movement with someone last year, this contact improv, and I just had this idea of a piece. It came out of like just taking one sentence and kind of using movement. Now, I'm not a dancer at all. I'm not a lot of things, but I do them. And I just reached out to this choreographer who I have no idea, but today we're having a phone to me because she does really interesting stuff, and it feels like, because I'm like, I'm not a dancer, so you have to work with non-dancer. Who knows what will happen? But that I'm really been interested in this piece particularly for some reason. First of all, I love movement. I feel like it's so healing. Also, dancing for me is so healing. But I'm much better dancing when I don't have to partner with anyone. I'm always like that. It's like anything, like I just do my own thing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So there's all that, and then continue writing. I always have like a lot of things going on, and just a lot of my time is spent, just trying to keep my, serene and keep my serenity and keep, because as again, as I get older, there's been a lot of stuff that's been tough in the last few years. I've had a lot of losses, and my daughter, just like a lot of stuff. And my thing that I realized that I love. I mean, I love all the performing and stuff. It's gonna be wrong with all that, but like my thing that I feel like is the greatest now, like I'm like dreams. Like my best thing is if I can be with a, group of friends and having a nice dinner, or like even now having a conversation. This is as good as it gets. Like really, and I wouldn't have said that years ago. I just like less of. I still have like I want to have to prove something, which I'm trying to like. I'm not trying. I just hope that keeps dissipating because. Feeling like life is like a fight or something, or a battle of like, prove yourself. Yeah. And so I hope more of that.
I wish you all the best with all of it. And, I think it's lovely that, you know, you get to spend some of that time doing something with your dad as well, because I think that's kind of, how precious is that?
So precious. And
when your dad's at that age to be able to work alongside your dad and do something like that.
Incredible.
You know, it's just fantastic. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today. Please, no, it's my pleasure. Please, folks, do check out everything that Marla has done. You know, we're putting some links as this goes out so that you can connect to the different bits and pieces that she's done. You know, if this has resonated with you today and you want to find out more, please do, because that's what it's all about, really. And thank you for this is pretty much wrapping it up now for 2023. I'll be back with lots more. I've already pre-recorded some over in 2024. Let's see if we can reach 500 interviews. Probably can quite easily by the time we get into there. And if you've enjoyed it all this year, thank you so much for your support. Until next time, bye for now.